Today on Doing Stuff with Dave, we're going to
Exterminate!
say hello to my little friend! I 3D modeled a warehouse of Dalek parts and then began printing them out. Once everything had printed, the next step was to prepare them for painting. I did this by thinning out some wood putty with acetone and coating each of the pieces with this mixture. This helps fill in the layer lines and reduces the need for sanding later, although I wasn't particularly worried about a perfect sanding job because I intended to heavily weather the piece. Some light sanding was still required, but then I moved on to priming and painting. From printing to painting to installation, dealing with all of these collars and hemispheres was probably the most tedious part of the entire job. After priming all of the pieces with automotive spray paint, I used a combination of brass and copper to simulate the look of heat staining and corrosion. I began the assembly process by installing the collars and hemispheres. All that was needed here was a friction fit, no glue. The rest of the piece, however, had to be assembled using CA glue. Before I moved on to weathering, there were a couple small details that couldn't be accomplished with spray paint, so I did them with a paintbrush. On to my favorite part. Probably everybody's favorite part, the weathering. This was accomplished largely with acrylic paint in washes of browns and grays and some black. I tried to focus on areas that were likely to collect dirt to make it look as realistic as possible. The final step was to install the lighting. I used white and blue LEDs. This part was challenging. Printing at this scale, it was difficult to make the holes large enough for the wire to fit through. But after connecting the resistors to the LEDs and finally powering it all with a 9-volt battery, everything worked as expected. So for God's sake, make a Dalek and film it in your oven, or your fireplace if you have one. They both make great backdrops for a war-torn Dalek world.